Hi everybody, good morning. Victoria Moran here in beautiful uptown New York City, even now. You know, it's a funny thing. You know that old song, Things We Do for Love? You can fall in love with a place just like you can fall in love with a person. And I tend to be prone to that. I was so in love with London, and actually still am, that I moved there on my 18th birthday. Now, I went to London from Kansas City, so that was quite a thing to do, both geographically and psychologically, and I don't regret 1 minute of it. Last night, my husband and I were watching a PBS special about the history of Christianity, and in one of the more modern episodes, the moderator was at St. Martin's in the Fields, a beautiful church in London, in the Trafalgar Square area. So when I lived there, when I was 19, I met a young man who was a verger in St. Martin's in the Fields, and we would go there kind of after hours when there weren't a lot of people there, and we'd get to listen to the organist practice. And a couple of times he took me up in the bell tower and good morning, Kandira, and I got to ring the bells of St. Martin's in the Fields, which probably was against all kinds of rules, but oh my gosh, it was an amazing feeling. And I think amazing feelings and amazing memories are really important right now, and I hope that you are having lots of them and making many of them. So thank you for joining day 9 of Enchanted April, and the quotation for today is about food. Food, glorious food. It comes from Living a Charmed Life, and it says, especially now, make it a point to eat a minimum of 1 meal a day, sitting at a table and using utensils. Cloth flowers, candles, cloth napkins, and dishes that would break if you dropped them are extra credit. So I want to hear from you about food and eating. And are you eating some meals at the table, whether you're with a family, whether you live with other people, or whether it's just you right now? So if you celebrated Passover Seder last night, maybe you have one planned for tonight as well, let us know about those. And if you're making big plans for Easter dinner, share that with us as well. It's so interesting how people are having these gatherings via Zoom. I was speaking this morning with my wonderful literary agent who was telling me that his Passover Seder was just he and his wife in their space, but with 14 people total on Zoom, and that they were able to see everybody's face as people went around the table. So that's all pretty special. I find that I have wildly divergent attitudes toward food depending upon my attitude toward myself and my life on any given day. So on the days when I'm really into all the stuff that I know, you know, there's what we know up here, and then there's what we can bring down to the heart, and what we can get from the heart out into the hands and the action. It's a lot. And when I've got all that going on, then I can really be creative in the kitchen, even if there's nobody here but my husband and myself, which is obviously the way it is right now. So I have done a couple of creative things that I will share with you. Hi, everybody who's joining, and thank you, Louise, for the head wrap comment. I have a lot of Senegalese neighbors who have taught me how to do various head wraps. I can't even begin to do some of the knots and braids and twists that they do, but the basic ones I've gotten down, and it's really fun, especially on bad hair days, which is pretty much every day during the coronavirus quarantine. So back to food. I was listening to a wonderful webinar that was put on by Plant Powered Metro New York, and I would encourage you to look up this group. Leanna Levine Reisner heads it up, Plant Powered Metro New York. It's one of the Plant Powered pods through the Nelson Campbell Plant Pure Nation organization. And the one here in the city does amazing things, and obviously now they're all on Zoom so people can participate everywhere. But there was a wonderful doctor last week on one of these webinars, Dr. Weiss. He's in New Jersey, and he's really a Renaissance guy. He is not only a plant-based physician with a thriving practice, but he actually has a plants-only farm. And he grows vegetables, and he knows what they all do. He knows about the phytochemicals and the various properties. So one of the, I won't even say vegetables, because it's not a vegetable, it's a fungus, that he was waxing poetic about was the humble mushroom. Now, the humble mushroom is just plain old white mushroom, or maybe a portobello. And then there are all these amazing medicinal mushrooms, shiitakes and whatnot. But they're all amazing. So even those plain old white ones, at least in a petri dish, can kill breast cancer cells like crazy. And Dr. Weiss was also talking about the amazing properties that they have to prepare the body, prepare the immune system to deal with microbial attacks and that sort of thing. So I've been cooking a lot of mushrooms. Now I've learned from Dr. Greger that you don't want to eat them raw because there's a slight carcinogen naturally occurring in there. So I just steam them. I just put them on a steamer and the steam comes up, and then I've got myself some beautiful mushrooms to put on practically anything. I also have made mushroom stroganoff since we've been going through our closed inside ordeal, and that's really easy. You can find recipes all kinds of places. Usually it's tofu that fills in for all of the sour cream and stuff that conventional stroganoff has. So I've got the mushrooms going on, and the other thing that Dr. Weiss was talking about as a really powerful antimicrobial is garlic. And I always knew that. I thought you had to eat it raw. And that's kind of a problem. I used to know a guy, a long time ago. I was 19, I guess, or 20, when I moved to Wheaton, Illinois, to live at the headquarters of the Theosophical Society. I worked in the library there and read a lot of books and learned a lot. And I also knew a young man who was also living there who ate raw garlic to protect his health. Well, maybe it protected his health, but it was sure difficult on everybody else. We drove into Chicago one night with him, and I think we all smelled of garlic when we got home. So every now and then, if I really feel like I'm coming down with something, I'll put a clove of raw garlic through the juicer with my green juice or my carrot juice, and I think that is really potent. But Dr. Weiss was saying that you get a lot of the benefit from roasted garlic, and then you don't have the breath situation afterwards. Now, I was a little bit intimidated by the idea of roasting garlic because I'd never done it before, but I found a really easy way to do it that I will share with you, and that is that you wrap your nice head clove, not clove, the clove is the little part, the whole head with lots of cloves of garlic in a piece of parchment paper, and then you wrap it in aluminum foil. Now, if you don't have parchment paper, you could just wrap it in aluminum foil, but there is some indication that aluminum is a toxic metal and we don't want to get that into ourselves through our food. So that's why the recommendation is the parchment paper first and then the aluminum foil. And you put it in the oven at 425 and you leave it there for 1 hour. And then you open it up and let it cool a little bit because it's really, really hot. And then you can remove those cloves and just squeeze the garlic out of each one. And I serve them with baked potatoes and they make the butter, which is so cool. So usually I steam potatoes because that's easy, but right now I think I've already told you my stove is broken and I can't get somebody in to fix it. So I can't cook on the top of the stove, but I can cook in the oven. So I have learned how to do a real oven baked potato, which I hadn't done in years and I had forgotten how fabulous they are. So I baked the potatoes, 425, half an hour, turn them over, prick the skin so the steam will come out, and golly, they're good. And then you put that garlic on there, kind of like butter. It is so cool. Kandera, raw garlic gets you a seat on the train. The Sky Train, I don't know what the Sky Train is. That must be a Washington thing, a Northwest thing. But it would get me a seat on the New York City subways when indeed I have the nerve to ever travel on one again. We'll see what that is. So I'm just interested. Oh, thank you, Nibby. You're very kind. I'm interested in what you're eating, what you're cooking. Where are you eating it? Are you sitting at a table? It makes such a difference. Now here, Kandera, ooh, wow, your congregation of 800 is doing an online Good Friday service, and we take communion now with kombucha and bread. How cool is that? Wow. And you're not in Washington State, you're in British Columbia. I'm sorry. I had you not only in the wrong state province, I had you in the wrong country. My apologies. So, greetings to Canada. So, what do you plan to eat today? What's on tap for lunch? For me, lunch is always a great big salad, unless I don't feel good enough about myself to have a salad. I had one day like that last week. I told you about that. But on a regular day, arugula is my very, very favorite green because I'm half Italian and so is arugula. So I usually start with that. And then if I'm going to do kale, I massage the kale. Now, baby kale, you can just use as is. It's easy as anything. But if you have the mature kale, you've got to take the stems off. And then you massage your lemon juice or your vinegar, and if you use oil and salt, a little bit of that. But even just the lemon juice or vinegar will do the trick, because what you're doing is basically cooking those fibers of the kale. So it's going to reduce down and it'll be nice and tender, and you can have a fabulous salad. So I put beans in, usually, in fact, almost always, a little bit of kelp, sea vegetables. That's because I'm an old observer of hippies. I was never an old hippie. I always liked clothes and shopping too much, but I certainly observed, and that's how I learned about the sea vegetables, which are still pretty cool. Dulse is my favorite. Nivi says she is breaking a 60-hour fast. So I'm going to be doing green juice and leafy microgreens most of today. What a great idea, and what a powerful thing to do, especially now. This is the springtime, and it's the spirit of renewal. So there's a lot going on spiritually this month. We're in Passover. Yesterday was the Buddha's birthday. We have Easter coming on Sunday for the Western Church, the following week for the Orthodox. Later in the month is Ramadan. And yet long before a lot of these religions were on the earth, there were people looking at the earth to see what was happening at the various times of year. And this time of year in old Europe was called Ostara, and it was to honor nature's reawakening. And so whatever your worldview, we're all part of nature, and we're all having springtime, even though it is a very strange one this year, but it's waking up just the same. Wanda Huberman, hey Wanda, National Health Association. That's something else. If anybody doesn't know about it, do look up the National Health Association. They used to be called the American Natural Hygiene Society. They are the longest running organization to promote plant-based diets and natural living. They do so much good in the world, and Wanda and her husband Mark are very involved in that, heading it up, doing a lot of the work, and she's saying that they are going to be spending time with their daughters and husbands on the back porch outside this weekend. That sounds good. So Sargam is asking what else I put in my salad. Lots of greens and whatever else I have there. Sometimes I do shredded cabbage. Now, kale is also a cabbage family vegetable. You get some phytochemicals in those cabbage family vegetables that you don't get anywhere else. So I might do that, or if I've got some broccoli, I'll steam that a little bit because I prefer it steamed to raw. So does my dog, who really likes broccoli. So that stuff goes on there. And sometimes sunflower seeds, hemp seeds, so much can go into a salad. My friend Lynn in Costa Rica, she talks about oomph factor. I remember having lunch with her once in Bermuda, and the salads came and they were very beautiful, and she so graciously said to the server, "These are very nice, but would you mind adding some oomph factor?" And so the salads came back with some guacamole and some steamed vegetables and I think some sweet potato. That's the kind of stuff that gives your salad oomph factor, because otherwise people will say things like, "Oh, you're vegan. You must eat a lot of salad." And you want to say, heck yeah, and I'm lucky because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to eat. And I have to say, during this coronavirus period, when some days it's been hard to get enough of the fresh food because we're dependent on some grocery delivery services, and I have to say, going online for grocery delivery, it's a little bit like what I've seen on TV of Black Friday at department stores when people are practically attacking each other to get bargains. I'm in competition with everybody else in New York City and environs to try to get a slot for food delivery. And so sometimes the fresh food is a little bit not so available. But even then, frozen works. It doesn't work for salad, but it works for phytochemicals and antioxidants. And a couple of things, I'll get beans in cans and I'll get artichoke hearts in cans. Every now and then I'll find artichoke hearts in a jar that don't have citric acid. There's a possibility that citric acid might not be the best thing in the world. It's not really from citrus, it's really from corn. But most of the time, I just get them the way they come, and artichokes are a really, really healing food. Plus, I have an affinity for the artichoke because the good people at Tarcher Penguin chose to put an artichoke on the cover of my book, Main Street Vegan. So I've gotta love it. Heather Green is in Maine. Ooh, making lemongrass coconut soup with mushrooms and broccoli. Oh, that sounds so good. My daughter does a lot with lemongrass. She has a Thai soup that's a little bit of her specialty. So that sounds really, really good. So everybody, I have a few announcements for today. Yesterday's Main Street Vegan podcast, is now up on Unity Online Radio, on mainstreetvegan.net, and on a whole bunch of podcast apps like Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, pretty much everywhere. And at least one segment of each episode this month is COVID-19 related, at least peripherally. So yesterday we did that with an interview with Brenda Morris. She's a certified financial planner who specializes in humane investing. And she talked about the situation now and what we can do if we're a little bit freaked out on the financial front, and also about humane investing in general. It's a beautiful idea and a very powerful thing. She also talked about people who are new to investing just getting in, and even though things look awful when you look at the TV and you look at the market going down, this is actually the best time to get in. So that's an interesting segment. And then we talk with Paul Rodney Turner. Wonderful guy. He is the food yogi, and he talked about the Om Guarantee, which is a wonderful way for people in business to be able, for just 25 cents, to feed a hungry child in India or somewhere else in the world. So have a listen. Thank you so much. And we also have the Main Street Vegan Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. If you're not part of that, I warmly invite you. And that's kind of the inner circle of the podcast listeners. And you can let me know what you like, what you don't like, who you would love to have on, and I will try to accommodate all that. So let's see what else is happening. The Compassionate Eating class that's being taught through Unity Spiritual Explorers. If you know people who are veg curious, people who are thinking, well, maybe I want to look at this kind of plant-based thing, do send them there, because this class is free through the month of April. You go to tinyurl.com/U veg, V-E-G, class, C-L-A-S-S, and it'll say that it's $59.95, but go ahead and sign up. And when you get to the payment page, you put in the code PRAYER123, P-R-A-Y-E-R 123, and that will take the price down to $0, which is a really good price. And also, if you want to invite other people to be part of the Enchanted April project, it's all going up on my YouTube. I'm so proud of myself that I learned how to go through the steps and get the Facebook Live onto YouTube. Anybody that's techie is like, yeah, you just do it. But believe me, for me, it's an accomplishment. And so my YouTube page is Victoria Moran NYC, or you could go tinyurl.com/V Moran NYC, and anybody who'd like to join in can see what we've been doing for the past 9 days. So before we leave for today, does anybody have anything wonderful to share or to ask, or even not wonderful? Because it'll be wonderful since it comes from you. I was looking for, there's a gentleman named David Hoke who sometimes joins us. And when I saw on CNN last night that the wonderful singer-songwriter John Prine passed away due to coronavirus, all I could think of was David Hoke, because he was the person who back in the 1990s had sent me a mixtape. Oh my gosh, a mixtape, even pre-CD, that had some songs from John Prine and Bonnie Raitt and some of the other wonderful singer-songwriters that I had never discovered before. I liked folk music, I liked country music, I liked pop music, but this combination of all of them with some R&B and gospel influences as well, oh my gosh, it made such a difference. And John Prine is quite a guy. So if you don't know his work, Angel from Montgomery and When I Get to Heaven, you might want to have a listen today. Okay. Oh, Kandira, you watched Enchanted April on YouTube. I haven't done that yet. I remember that when I saw it 100 years ago, I really liked it. And I really like the title, obviously, because I borrowed it. Okay, everybody, thank you so very much for being part of this. And please tell your friends, because wouldn't it be cool if by the 30th of April, we had a whole great big group. And even if we don't, we're cool anyway. Be well, be happy, God bless, Goddess bless.